Well, in the movies, they are fake opponents, but still they're tough martial artists. Who's the toughest, other than Chuck Norris? Of course, Chuck Norris is the toughest, but other than Chuck Norris, who's the toughest opponent you ever had in the movie you had a pleasure filming the scene with?
For me, probably Benny Urquidez, Benny the Jet. I mean, Benny, pound for pound, is still one of the toughest martial artists I've come across. It's not just because of his physical ability, but it's just his heart and his mindset. You know, he's always been an incredible role model for me. I mean, there's another gentleman, Pete Cunningham, who's from Canada. I've trained with Petey for nearly 30 years now in kickboxing. He's another phenomenal martial artist, you know, and tough. And they've both been in movies. As you know, Benny did some movies with Jackie Chan, and Jackie was just blown away with Benny's ability. Yeah, I mean, there's been a few Jackie, of course, you know, I've done movies with Jackie Chan. It's a different area, you know, his ability and everything else, to someone like Benny, who's ring tested, do you know what I mean? Had so many actual physical combat fights in the ring against elite opponents, you know, that makes him stand out in my mind. Because, you know, with martial arts, myself included, you know, there's a lot of what we do that you believe it would work and you hope it would work in a street fight, even though I've been, and I wouldn't say fortunate, but I've had that experience through that 25 years of bodyguarding, you know, to have to get into physical altercations. But there's a lot of what we do that it's very theoretical. And unless you've actually been in real combat, you've battle tested your skills, you don't know whether it would really work, you know?
So you have a different appreciation for the people that actually competed and had proved something, what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, so they've been on the battlefield, that'll be whether it's military or police or you know, doormen, you know, some of these people have worked on doors all their lives. I mean, goodness gracious, that's a battlefield, you know? Even when we did doors, I was just a kid when I started doors. I was in my late teens, but it was rough. Back then we used to laugh with Australian male, you know. If you went out, you would get drunk and get into a fight, and if you picked up a girl, that was good, but it wasn't necessary to having a good time. It was all about just getting into fights. But I want to strictly say that as much as that sounds like, oh yeah, it's a blokey thing to do, that was not my life, you know. I was just brought up differently. Even though I worked on doors and did bodyguard, it was never really my thing to be trying to get into fights. It wasn't what I was about. But I had lots of friends that did. But the point being, some of the guys that I work with, oh my God, you know, talk about battle tested. They knew what worked because it had to work for them. And it's very different. You know, there's a big world, and I know we're getting off track here, but there's a big emphasis now on mixed martial arts. Now, you get the mixed martial artists, you know, that get in the ring today, they're just phenomenal athletes, you know, with the way they mix their arts, you know, with the grappling, the boxing, the kickboxing, everything else. And the fact that they get in there time after time and are so battle tested and can do that under the stress of an audience and the expectations, you know, put on them, I think that makes them incredible and very valid in the combat sense of the arts. Again, even for me doing bodyguard work, you know, you're really putting yourself on the line. Just every day you're out there. You know, I work with David Bowie and, you know, the Rolling Stones in the very beginning, and ABBA and Fleetwood Mac, Stevie Nicks, all these people. Now, just because you don't fight every day doesn't mean you're not actually still putting yourself on the front lines, because the expectation and the mindset you need to have is that any day could be the day that it's a life or death situation. It's a 1,000,000 chance it'll come to that. But I would often say to people, when I work with James Taylor, I would get some of the fans, punters, say, oh, why does James need a bodyguard? You know, we love him. To which I'd say, well, how come John Lennon's dead? You know, if you ask people, do you remember what you were doing when this or that happened? I was sitting in Peter Asher's office. Peter Asher was a member of a duo called Peter and Gordon, an English group that were as big as the Beatles in their day. So Peter became just a legendary, and still is actually, music producer and manager. He managed Linda Ronstadt and James Taylor, both of who I was working for. I worked with James and Linda for 14 years. But I was sitting in Peter's office because I used to give Peter workouts and everything, help keep him fit aside from going on the road. And he's talking to James Taylor, and Peter hangs up and he says, "Wow, that was weird." James just suddenly said to me, "Oh, that sounded like gunshots." Well, James was on Central Park West in New York, which is where he had an apartment very close to Lennon's. And the shots that James heard while on the phone to Peter was Mark Chapman shooting and killing John Lennon, which is quite amazing to know that you're sitting there. And I still remember this, to the exact moment when that all happened. It's
an incredible moment
amazing.
In history that kind of sort of recorded in there, and you can't get it out quite.
No, and then the interesting thing with James remembered that Chapman actually came up to him the day before and asked him for an autograph. But apparently he had a list of people he was after, and Lennon being probably on the top of that list. But it's quite chilling when you hear stories like that.
What's the worst injury that you received on set?
Oh, I've been pretty lucky. I've torn ligament in my knee. I've had my nose broken. But overall, I've been pretty blessed. But also, what I've kind of done in most of mind you, when I was acting in lots of movies, did 40 plus lower budget movies. I said I did 3 with Jackie Chan, lots with Chuck and different people, and did a lot of leads myself in different countries. But then it was a little scary, or hairy, but again, I was young and you think you're indestructible and everything else, but I was still very lucky. But for the most part of my career, I've mainly been involved in the fight aspect. I would leave, car stunts, motorcycle stunts, high falls to the people that specialize in that. As a result, I've been in a situation where I'm not exposed to the possibility of getting serious injury, even though you could argue doing fight scenes with Jackie Chan on a Hong Kong set is hairy enough in itself. But you know what I'm saying. Yeah. There's people like when we did Mad Max rolling tankers and everything, good God, I wouldn't do that in a fit. It's not what I do, and it's not what I choose to do, even if I could or did think I could do it, I mean, that's amazing. So, no, I haven't had a lot of injuries. I've had surgeries, both my shoulders, I've had both shoulders, operated on twice, but that's not from bad training or anything else. That was from falling on it literally hundreds of times doing the Hong Kong movies, banging into concrete walls, falling on concrete floors. People forget when you do these falls, they say, well, how to break fall in martial arts, but as you would know in a movie, you can't break fall. You're supposed to fall like a bag of shit when you get punched and hit the ground. That's part of the gig and everything. But I stripped all the cartilage off the bone and everything, and I had all these fragments floating around, causing inflammation, everything else. So I had them operated on. I've had my lower back, with, some work done on that. But listen, considering my age and fact that I can still do what I can do, I have no complaints, Let's get on with it.